Something looking funky here today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you see me okay? Something's, let me see what's going on here on my, there we go. Hello, hello, hello. I'm a one-man wrecking crew today. My son is doing some volunteering. Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Good morning, everybody. For those of you that are brand new, my name is Brad Varnell. This is the Infinite Crypto YouTube channel. And as I was saying, I'm a little bit of a one-man wrecking crew today. I've got volunteering at our church. And so I've kind of got to keep an eye on all of the technical stuff. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that technical stuff isn't necessarily my strong suit. I'll make it happen, though. But I'm excited, man. It's Monday morning. Beautiful day here in Las Vegas. Been setting some new records, getting up into like the 115 to 120 degree range. Luckily, we got good air conditioning and don't have to spend too much time of it outside, but hopefully you guys had a fantastic 4th of July week. It was kind of interesting with 4th of July falling on Thursday. It kind of felt like everybody celebrated it all the way through the weekend, which is great. I had a lot of friends and family that went on, 4 or 5 day camping trips or went down to, from here, we're about 5 hours away from Santa Monica Pier and the beach and stuff. So I know a lot of people that headed out and had a good weekend at the beach and so on and so forth. So hopefully you and your family, your loved ones, had a barbecue, had some fun, especially if you're here in the United States and celebrating, our Independence Day. So what are we going to talk about today? I didn't get the description all the way done. I barely got the title in there. But we're going to talk about some money habits that, that can kind of keep us frustrated in life a little bit. And for those of you that were on the inner circle that we were doing on Saturday, excuse me, I feel like I got something in my eye. For those of you that were on that inner circle meeting, I mentioned you guys saw my wife come up and grab my money. I mentioned that my sister-in-law was going to be having a baby, and we're still waiting. She's been in the hospital since Saturday. We're hoping that the baby is going to be coming here soon. So famous last words. I'm going to try to get through what I wanted to talk about today in a little bit shorter time than normal, but that means that we'll probably be here for about an hour and a half, knowing me. But let's see if we can whoop through it in a somewhat timely fashion. So one of the things that I've realized over my life, and I had a ton of trouble in this, and I'm still working on it diligently. It's not something that came natural to me at all. But one of the things that I've realized that people do that kind of keep them frustrated financially is not having a plan. So recently I have a personal trainer, a gentleman that's helping me in my getting in shape and getting healthy and losing weight. One of the first things that he did was have me download this app onto my phone called Lose It, where I can track my food. And what I found is when I put in a few different things about my height and my weight and my age and stuff, is it kicked out a number, and it basically gave me a number of calories that I can eat on a daily basis. And the thing is like magic. If I eat that daily number of calories at the end of the week, I've lost weight. And if I don't track my food properly, or if I eat too many calories, then at the end of the week, I have magically not lost any weight or gained a little bit of weight. But the biggest thing that the tracking does is it gives me a plan, and it helps me make better decisions when I choose to use it. And so I don't think anything that I'm talking about here today is rocket science. I don't think that any of you probably have never heard anything that I'm going to be talking about. Most of you have probably had times in your life where somebody mentioned something similar to this, or or, something that reminds you of this. Although, I got to remind myself sometimes that not everybody, has a habit of reading books and listening to audio such as like this YouTube channel and that kind of stuff. So there's some people out there that maybe have never really heard anything along these lines. We all probably growing up were taught, like, hey, you should have a budget. But I'm one of the people that can say that I've pretty much don't have a budget. I mean, I know how much I've got my bills listed out. I know how much my bills are. I know how much money I need to make every month. But as far as me being like, okay, I'm going to spend $1,000 on groceries and going out to eat this month, I don't do that. And so part of the reason that I'm doing this training today is I want to get back to this system that I'm going to share with you guys, because I originally came across this probably around 20 years ago through a very close family member that invited me out to this gentleman's seminar. He was going to be in Washington State, and he was doing a couple of day training, and I got free tickets to come out to this gentleman's seminar, and he kind of taught this money system. So the first thing that I want to do here, folks, is I really want to impress upon you the need for the system, because a lot of you are going to, when I start going into what this system is and how it works, some of you are just going to kind of turn me off. You're going to think, that's great for some people, but it's not for me. And and maybe that's true. So if you've already got a fantastic system in place, you track your money extremely well, you really know where every dime of it is going, then kudos to you, more power to you. But I know that a lot of people are more like me than are like, so my mom was a person who had extreme discipline when it came to money. My mom never made very much money. But she always kept her credit fantastic. She managed to buy herself a condominium. Unfortunately, my parents split up when I was a young teenager, probably about 13 years old. My parents, went their separate ways. And my mom, was good with money. She never made much money. She worked in retail for close to minimum wage, not minimum wage, but not a whole lot over minimum wage. Yet she managed to accumulate almost $500,000 by the time she passed away in 2019 at 73 years old. And she did that because she was one of the best people I've ever seen when it came to having a budget and not blowing money on a bunch of stuff that she doesn't need. Like, I spend way too much money on food. I'll let it be known. Like, one of my weaknesses is going out to eat. And normally it's not only myself and my wife, but I've got my son and my editor and my daughter sometimes. In fact, my dogs are probably going to go crazy on us here in a couple of minutes, because my daughter just went to a place that's kind of like Starbucks. It's called Dutch Brothers here in Vegas, to grab me a sugar-free coffee, because we ran out of my coffee creamer this morning. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling. I apologize. So back to the point. One of the things that I want to really impress upon you is your need for a system. And the reason for that, folks, is the difference between wealthy people and people that don't get wealthy is there's a very thin line. The people that get wealthy don't do a whole lot different. They do think differently, and they do a few key things differently. But if you are one of those people that struggled financially for a lot of years, and that's just barely, had enough money to scrape along in life, I'm telling you, there's hope, and that you're closer to a breakthrough than you might think. But one of the things that I hear a lot of people that haven't made a lot of money say is stuff like, well, when I start making more money, well, then I'll start saving more money. Same thing with giving. I know that there's a lot of very generous people that don't do a lot of giving. And most of the time it's because in their mind, they believe that when they make more money, they're going to give more money. And it's just a fallacy, folks. It doesn't happen. So what I'm here to tell you is, if you have poor money habits when you have a little bit of money, a lot of times that's going to translate into, most of the time, that's going to translate into poor money habits when you have a lot of money. And I can tell you from personal experience that when you have poor money habits with a little bit of money, it doesn't really cause that many complications, that much trouble in your life. Your biggest, bugaboo is that you don't have enough money to, live the way that you want to live. But when you start to make big money and you have bad money habits, it can really create, a lot of frustration. So in other words, if somebody's making $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 a year, and they have poor money habits, a lot of times they can't get themselves into that much trouble because they don't have the ability to do a whole lot of borrowing. They don't have the ability to really put themselves in that bad of a financial position. But I'm telling you, when you start to get up to where you're making, 100, 200, 500,000, $1 million a year, all of a sudden, opportunities come to you, the ability to borrow money comes to you. There's a lot of things that come, and if you're not prepared for it, that it can really wipe you out. And so 2 reasons that I wanted to do this video today was, one, to help people that are really struggling financially start to build up some money, to start to get ahead of things in life. But I also, as a little bit of a warning for a lot of us that are on this channel, we're on the right path. And we know that over the next 6 or 12 months, there's going to be a huge influx of wealth that comes into our life. And I wanted to go over a few of these things that will hopefully help us to maintain that quality of life and to keep that wealth in our family, in our, generation, versus, squandering it. So once again, if you don't have good money habits now, if you are broke, if you're making $40,000 a year and you're totally broke, I know you don't believe me probably, but you could all of a sudden get a raise. Your boss could come in and tell you, hey, I'm going to give you a 50% raise. You just got promoted to management and we're going to give you $60,000 a year. And for a few months, you would probably feel like you had a lot of money. But within just a few short months, you would be spending the 60,000 to be just as tight on money at the end of the month as you were on 40. And the same thing when you get to 100,000 and so on and so forth. And so the moral of the story is, I know people that are making $40,000 a year that have a reasonable amount of freedom in their life, that actually have extra money, that can do funner things in life. And I also know people that are making $1 million a year that are stressed out and financially are in really, really bad shape. And even though they've got $1 million a year coming in a lot of ways, they're worse off than the person making 40,000. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, you guys don't know. This is like my medicine in the morning. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't drink, but I'm definitely addicted to caffeine, and I'm man enough to admit it. And it's very, very true also with giving, folks. If you don't figure out a way to carve out a little bit and give a little bit when you're not making very much money, when you start making bigger money, you're going to have the same trouble. Like, I promise you, if you're making $1,000 a week and you feel like it's impossible to give 100, when you get to the point where you're making $10,000 a week, you are not going to give $1,000 a week, away to causes and things that you love. It's just, you will be amazed because your lifestyle will go up. And, so on and so forth. So real quick here, let me see. Yeah, add up the coffees and see what you spend a month. Dutch Brothers is what, $8 a cup now? Pretty close with tip. It's probably $5 or $6, and then I always tip $1 or $2. So that is definitely this is definitely something that over the course of my lifetime is definitely costing me probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. What else do we got going on here? Same here, Tim. Trying to get up here into the chat and say hi to everybody. We had Dave P. Thank you for being here. Mr. Eric Bernstein. Thank you. This is the gentleman that is helping me as much as I let him. I'm not going to lie. The last couple 2 or 3 weeks, I joined the witness protection program on him, so he hasn't been able to help me a whole lot, but he is there and ready and willing when I'm there. Deadwood, thank you again for being here. And Tim G, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And then I see that we have Haydar Malik joined up into the chat. And Amy, good morning, Amy. How you doing? Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. And for those of you, I know that several of you that are on this morning are part of the Inner Circle. We had a really great Inner Circle on Saturday. That recording is up in the Discord group, so feel free to go watch that recording if you're a part of the Inner Circle. And so let me get into now, so hopefully I've got you somewhat convinced that if you're not budgeting your money, you're not saving and investing and giving now, that you're probably going to have a tough time doing it when you have more money. And believe me, it's not fun when you have more money to end up doing the incorrect things and going back down to where you were at previously. Like when it's very, very true that once you kind of get used to having money, when something causes it to flee from you and you got to go back to where you used to be, it's definitely a challenge. I think most wealthy people go through it though. I mean, they say that the average millionaire has been broke 3 times in their life. So very few people go from, just average hard work and making, normal 40, 50, $100,000 a year to creating real wealth in their life without having some ups and downs in between. But at the same time, part of that is because it seems like most of us always have to learn from our own mistakes versus learning and getting wisdom from other people that have already traveled the road. So here's what I'm going to recommend. I say this every video, I know, but if you don't have a pen and paper, please grab a pen and paper. If you have the ability to do so, this is what I would recommend. And this comes from a gentleman named T. Harv Eker, a very, very successful man. One of the things that I love, a principle that he taught that sounds funny too, I digress a little bit. It doesn't have as much to do with what we're talking about, but it is important. He's the one that taught me that, like, if you find, you're walking along and you see a quarter laying on the ground, you want to grab that quarter and you want to pick it up and you want to be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am a money magnet. And there's a lot of wealthy people out there, a lot of people that would like wealth that step right over that penny or that nickel or that quarter, or they get a little bit of a gift or a little bit of a their boss says, hey, here you go, here's $25 gift card for lunch, and they just they overlook little things like that. I call it stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, because they don't think it's important, but it's all about your mindset. If you walk by a dime laying down on the street and you believe that you are above, it's not enough, it's not worth your energy to bend over and pick up that dime. The dime is not the important thing. The important thing is your mindset. What you're telling your mind, you're trying to tell your mind that you want wealth and that you're looking to create wealth, yet your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a dime and $1 or $100 bill. So when you walk past that dime and you don't pick it up and get enthusiastic about the fact that you just got free money, it's telling your subconscious mind that you don't care about creating wealth after all. And so that's just a little side note. Like, get excited when extra money comes your way. Be excited about it, whether it's a dime that's laying on the street or an extra, you're getting ready to do laundry. You ever done that? You get ready to go do laundry and you go through your pockets and all of a sudden there's an extra $18 in your pocket that you almost wash. Get excited about those little things and start really training your mind for the abundance that you want it to have. So this is T. Harv Eker's. I'm stealing it from him. But one of the things that is super important, and part of the reason I'm doing this training today is because I'm going to go back to this system for myself. And so what you want to do is you want to have, I know this is right here is where I'm going to lose most of you. You want to have 6 bank accounts. That's right, 6 bank accounts. And what I kind of like to do a lot of times is just have a couple of bank accounts, and then I like to have jars or like envelopes. But what you want to do is you want to get used to putting your money in 6 different places. I found that if you try to keep your money in one lump sum and then just keep track of how much of it you're spending on these different things, you will end up overspending, and you will spend money on one item of life that takes away from another area of life. So, and in the beginning, this can be a pain in the butt, but it's actually a lot of fun, because I did this back, 20 years ago. When I first heard about this, I was doing it, and it's fun. So what you want to do, in his opinion, and I think it's a pretty smart opinion too, you want to get to where you're living off of around 50% of what you have coming in. And whether that's, $50,000 a year or $1 million a year, one thing that I've noticed is most wealthy people live well beneath their means and really build up a huge amount of cash flow. So the end goal is to live off of about 50% of what you're making. Now, I know that most of us, including me, I'm so far away from living off of half of what I have coming in that it's not even a remote possibility that I could just turn on a switch and start living off of half of what I'm making. Now, that's not to say that I have some cool things going on in life, and I could probably, and then working on increasing my income to the point where I can live off of half of it in the not too distant future. But right now, in this moment in time, even if I said, okay, well, that's it, I'm just going to live off a half, I would have to make some dramatic changes in my lifestyle. I guess it wouldn't be impossible, but it would be rough. So having said that, I want you to take all of these numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt and realize one of my other favorite things to say in life is that the habit is more important than the amount. So we're going to start off talking about percentages here, but what I want you to do is just remember and write that down, that the habit is more important than the amount. So let me just go through the percentages here real quick for you guys. So he writes down that you want to have one bank account where you've got 55% of all of the money that you have coming in after taxes that is for your necessities, your food, your rent, your car payment, your electricity, your Netflix, that kind of stuff. 55% goes into that account for all of your necessities. Next, you have an account where 10% of all of your after-tax money goes into this long-term savings jar or long-term savings bank account. This bank account is for emergencies, for bigger purchases, down payment on a house, and so on and so forth. Number 3, which I think is cool that he puts it up at the top, is that take 10% of what you make and put it in the fun jar. Put it in the having fun and treating yourself to fun things in life jar. And so he makes that important. There's 6 jars, and that is the third one. And I think it's because he realizes that if you're not having any fun, then this is going to get old quickly. And by doing this 10%, you really set yourself up to where you get to treat yourself enough to where you don't feel like you're just totally, turning off the life switch. So put 10% in a jar or in an account that's for nothing but fun. And then I really recommend doing exciting things. Like don't build up $50 and go to Denny's and have a cheeseburger at Denny's with, your family. Save up $200 or $300 or $400 and go to a really nice restaurant. Like if you like steak and seafood, go out to a nice place and get yourself a $50, $60, $75, $100 steak that you really enjoy. Get used to spending that 10% of your fun money on things that are also helping you dream build and increase the move you in the direction of where you see yourself going in life. Go rent, if you love boats, save up and go rent a yacht for an hour versus renting a rowboat for the whole day, and so on and so forth, and there's also a lot of free things that you can do. Go drive that car of your dreams. If you want a Ferrari or you want a Range Rover, you want a Cadillac Escalade, whatever it is, get used to touching that. And some of those things you can totally do for free. But back to that 10% in fun money, try to do at least some things that are more expensive than what you would normally spend on fun. So you might only go out to dinner once a month or every couple of months when you're first getting this thing rolling. But when you go out to dinner, you're creating a memory and you're really having something special rather than just going to the same old restaurant that you go to all the time. The fourth thing that you want to do is put 10% into an education account. One of the things that most wealthy people do that people that don't get wealthy don't do is they continue to educate themselves. They are buying books. They are listening to good audios. They're getting out to events like here next week on the 19th, 20th, and 21st. We have WealthCon here in Las Vegas, ran by an incredible real estate investor, a gentleman named Ryan Pineda. So, here in Vegas, I have access to all sorts of different seminars, and whether it's real estate or investing in gold or obviously crypto, but I'm always learning. And so I really love, take 10% of your money and use that for the inner circle or for some other, mastermind group that really is attractive to you. But take 10% of your income and use that to grow yourself, grow your mind, to learn new things. And then fifth, and certainly not least, 10% for your financial freedom. You should be investing at least 10% of every dollar you make after taxes into the stock market, into real estate, into gold and silver. Of course, I'm biased. I would recommend investing it into the right cryptocurrencies because I believe that's where you're going to get the best bang on your dollar, especially in this moment of time where for the next 6 to 12 months, we are going to see absolutely massive, gains in the cryptocurrency industry. But you want to get your life set up to where you can save and invest at least 10% of your income. And then last but not least, he's got 5% for giving. Now, I really firmly believe that you want to get the giving up to 10%. I think biblically, God wants us to trust him with 10% of our money. God doesn't need 10% of our money. He does everything that he needs to do. He's God. He doesn't need our money, but he needs our obedience and he needs our trust. He needs our faith. And that's one of the ways that we can show God that we have faith is by giving and helping other people with 10% of our income. Now, T. Harv Eker, he only has 5% here, and that's fine. That's a great place to start. And once again, now that I've given you all of the numbers, we talked about it before we even got started, that most of us probably are not in a position where all of a sudden we can just start living off of 55%. So what do we do if we can't live off of 55%? Well, that now is where we go back to one of my favorite sayings, that the habit is more important than the amount. So at this point, what I would urge you to do is go through your budget and just figure out a plan for whatever you can do. If you need 99% of your money to live off of, then use 99% for one account and now take the remaining 1%, and I'm not kidding you, split it up into the other 5 places. I don't care if you literally are taking $1 a paycheck and putting it into the long-term savings envelope, and $1 into the fun envelope, and $1 into the education envelope, and so on and so forth. Because I can promise you, if you will do this for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, what you will see happen is that after a few weeks, you're going to be like, hey, this 99% that I'm living off of is a piece of cake. I'm still eating just as well. Everything's good. You know what? I'm going to try to live off of 95%, and I'm going to start putting 1% of my income into these other envelopes. And as long as you are diligent, and every time money comes into you, whatever percentage you decided to do, you stick with it. You're a man or woman of your word. You keep the promises that you make to yourself. Eventually, you're going to start seeing yourself now after a little while. You know, some of your crypto investments are starting to take off a little bit, and maybe you get a raise at your work, or maybe because this is on your mind, what will happen in a lot of cases is people will start to realize, you know what, I don't really need Paramount Plus and Netflix and Peacock and Disney and Netflix and PureFlix, and all of a sudden you start figuring out ways that you can maybe trim back your budget just a little bit here and there, because it's fun watching that money build up in the envelopes. That's one of the reasons I like the jars. I really like to get 6 jars. Most of the time, I'm not going to put the money that I'm using for my bills into that jar, because it's got to stay in a bank account to pay bills. But I really love to have like the fun money building up in a jar in cash. When I can, the long-term savings money, that stuff that I'm not trying to use very quickly, that can go into a jar. The education money can go into a jar. The savings and investing, if you're using 10% to save and invest, and you're taking that straight from the bank and putting it into crypto or whatever, then that's fine too. So maybe you can't use jars for everything, but I'm telling you, if you use jars for what you can, it's fun to just have your jars sitting over here someplace, close to you, and being able to see that money build up, in those jars. And then when your money jar has a few $100s in it, your fun jar, it's exciting to go do something fun. Plan that out with your family. This is a cool thing to do with your whole family. And I tell you what, if you have young children, teaching them a habit like this, you have no idea the impact that you are making on their life long term, man. If you can raise a young man or a young woman that is used to living off of 55% of what they have coming in, whether it's birthday money or allowance or whatever, and you get them in the habit of saving 10%, investing 10%, giving, and education, like these habits for young people are just absolutely unbelievable. And I think, in my personal opinion, I don't think they're ever too young. When my wife and I got together, she had a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and that have now, they're my kids now, but I met them when they were 6 and 9. I've legally adopted them. Their dad wasn't in their life. Unfortunately, my son's father passed away when he was 5, going on 6, and then my daughter's father was nowhere to be found. But long story short, when they were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I was really trying to instill these qualities into them. And my wife and I, we kind of butted heads a little bit. She thought that they were a little too young to, like they just got $100 for their birthday. And I'm like, hey, let's take 10 of that and put it into the church plate, on Sunday. And she kind of felt like they should probably be able to spend all of their money at that age. And we butted heads a little bit. Now, God bless her. When it really came down to it, she wasn't used to tithing at that time in her life either. So part of it was she kind of felt like if she was asking the children to do it, that she needed to do it. And this was back when she had a job and was making her own money. And I think it was just scary to when she started thinking about how much money she would be giving away at 10%, it kind of freaked her out. But that's one of the cool things about kids is they don't know any better. They only know what we teach them. And so I think that this is an incredible thing to do as a family. Not only will you be enjoying it and having fun for yourself, but I think that your kids will really, really love it. And I found that kids are so generous that when it really came down to it, my kids really got excited about putting that dollar or that $5 or that $10 into the plate at church, and then hearing about how we just built a water tower in an orphanage in Africa and some of the different things that the church was doing. And once again, it doesn't have to be a church, whatever you want to do, but I promise you, you cannot outgive God. Test him. Try to outgive God. For those of you that are a little resistant to giving, just try it for a month or two. I promise you, once you get used to giving on a regular basis and you see not only how good it makes you feel, and then you start to see the blessing in some of these areas where you've given, the good that it does, how it helps people, that's going to be enough to make you want to keep doing it all on your own. But what is so crazy about giving, folks, is you can't outgive God. No matter how hard you try, blessing upon blessing upon blessing start to come back and come into your life. And at first, you probably won't even realize that it's because you are sowing a seed of giving. In the Bible, it talks a lot about sowing and reaping. And if you're not sowing seeds of giving and abundance, it's going to be hard to reap seeds of sowing and abundance, folks. And so anyways, I really hope that you guys would, take this to heart and maybe do it as a whole family. And then once again, just keep the goal in mind. We all realize none of us are probably going to start at 50 or 55%, and then the other 40, 50% going into all of these envelopes, but just start with whatever you can, stick to it. And I promise you that over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, that you will eventually live off of 50% of what you're making, and you'll have 50% of what you're making that can go to all of these other things. And when you can also start to up the amount that goes into some of these too. So, last but not least, take these envelopes with a little bit of a grain of salt. So what I mean by that, in my opinion, once again, not financial advice, T. Harv Eker himself might totally disagree with this. In my opinion, I think it's okay to move those percentages around a little bit. Like, I want you to have your fun, but at the same time, if you decide, hey, you know what, I'm only going to put 5% in the fun envelope and 5% in, the long-term savings envelope, and I'm going to put 20% in the investing envelope, because I believe that over the next 6 to 12 months, that extra 10% is going to be exponential, then I'm on board with that. Like right now, I think is a time in life you don't want to give. I don't recommend taking from the giving. I don't ever believe that you make more by taking away from the giving and adding it to something else. In fact, I think it's the exact opposite. If you asked me, hey, should I give 10% to other people and invest 10%? Or do you think I'm better off giving 20% to other people and investing nothing? Or on the flip side, taking the 10% that I was giving, add it to the investing and investing 20%. I would rather you give the whole 20% away. And even though you're investing zero at that point, you would be amazed at how things will end up coming back and money will come into your life and you'll end up being able to invest anyways. But I promise you, if you take away from that giving to put into the, something that's for you, things are going to happen. You're going to pick the wrong cryptos that go to zero. You're going to believe me, I promise you, you will put yourself in a bad position. I can't explain it, but I just know that it's true. I know that it's true. So, with that, folks, that's it in a nutshell. Relatively simple. Grab yourself 5 jars, 5 envelopes, get 5 different bank accounts, however you need to do it. Start trying to live off of 55% of your income. Put the rest of the money into these other places, watch it grow, invest it, and come back in 6 months, 12 months, and tell me how it went. I hope that maybe a few of you that are watching today will jump on board with me. I'm going to get my jars ready and start doing this myself too, so we can hopefully compare notes here after a few months and see how it's going. with that, folks, I am going to get out of here and start getting ready to head to the hospital and hopefully get an opportunity to be there when my sister-in-law has this baby girl, Riley, that she is bringing into the world hopefully today. So I appreciate you all very much. God bless you. I love you. Have a fantastic week, and just, go out there and crush it. And we will see you again on Wednesday. Take care.